Hi, my name is Reed Silverne. The name of the show is Fed Pride. The reason it's called Fed Pride is because I'm a federal worker and proud of it. Again, I have Google Earth as my background, and I'm going to do the traditional spinning of the Earth. There. And take into account that I am the entire staff of the show, although I have to give Access Tucson a lot of credit for allowing the staff to set up the shot and get it going. After that, I am my own engineer, and all movement of my background is completely controlled by me. So I'm going to talk about a couple things, and the first place I'm going to talk about, and I'm going to go up here to the world, and we are going to put Iran over here on the to my upper right. And why are we going to do that? Because I have been talking a lot about the fact that most of our enemies right now are funded by our use of oil, Europe's use of oil, and Asia's use of oil. Most of the enemies that we have and the people that I've identified as our enemies of the future are basically being fueled by our addiction to oil. And an addiction that in our case is almost completely unnecessary. Why? Because the technology is here to drastically reduce our use of oil. And oil, in our case, in the case of the United States, is almost exclusively used for cars and trucks, transportation sector. The electricity sector, although the oil and associated industries would like to convert us to using oil for electricity or liquefied natural gas brought by the same people, Exxon and our other friends, and I put that in quotes. But right now, almost all of our electricity is produced domestically with domestic sources. Natural gas, coal, nuclear, so on and so forth. Very, very little of our electricity and our needs for electricity are fueled by oil. And in fact, even though there is some fuel oil that's used to heat homes, most of our home heating now is driven by natural gas. Some electricity, not that much. So the fact of the matter is our residential, our use of energy in the workplace, our use of electricity for business and so on and so forth, that is almost all domestic. And that is an exception in the world, except for Europe, which is now dependent on Russian natural gas. Of course, Russia is one of those potentials that I was talking about. Now, somebody who's already outrightly declared that he is our enemy, the president of Iran is named Mahmoud Ahmedinejad. Talked about him before. He's only been president a few years. And basically what happened in Iran, just to give you a little background, Iran had a Shah who was friendly to America. This is Iran right over here. It's a big country all along the Persian Gulf. Iraq, by the way, is up here where we're bogged down in a war. Actually, here's the border. Here's Afghanistan where we have another war. Here's Pakistan. Here's Iran. So Ahmedinejad only took over a couple years ago. In 1979, there was a revolt against a friendly Shah. Shah means king, and Shahanshah means emperor in Iran. And Shah Pahlavi was overthrown by Ayatollah Khomeini, who put a Islamic Republic in place. And in this Islamic Republic, the Guardian Council and the Supreme Leader. The Supreme Leader is a chief Ayatollah. The Guardian Council is all mullahs of one kind or another. Then there's a parliament, and then there's a president. There was a period there when a moderate Ayatollah named Khatami became president and tried to move Iran toward at least internally, more liberal stance, even though they had religious police and so on and so forth. Basically let women wear, instead of the whole top to bottom khadur, wear just a headscarf with different colors. Ooh, that's getting racy. Even though they had to have modest clothes. and that's been moving away. Because these folks who represented the students, the businessmen, and some of the small business owners were a threat, the Guardian Council in the last presidential election, they actually have elections in Iran, basically barred all of the reformers from running for president. They had picked Rafsanjani, who was we would call him a radical. They would call him a moderate. But he lost to a guy who was an ex-Revolutionary Guard, who may or may not have been one of the people who took our embassy hostage in 1979 and 80. It's hard to say exactly what, but the guy is an absolute outright radical. He said that he wants to see Israel wiped off the map. He calls for death to Americans. He supports Hezbollah and some other radicals throughout the Arab world, mostly Shiites, interfering in Iraq, everything else. And how does he do it? There's a parallel, first of all, there's that parallel government, but there's also a parallel military. There's the Iranian Army, Navy, so on and so forth, and then there are the Revolutionary Guards. The Revolutionary Guards even have their own little navy, and that navy were the people that captured those British soldiers that I talked about a few months ago, or a month or two ago. So there's a lot of radicalism there, and they are not our friends. Now, what am I going to talk about today? I'm going to talk about something that you haven't seen in the news very much. Maybe you have, but I haven't noticed it. And that is that there's an absolute gigantic, I'm going to turn the world a little bit, try to put Iran, make it a little, there we go, try to get it a little straighter. Basically what people don't know is that even though Iran probably makes around $50 to $70 billion a year out of oil exports, almost all going to this radical government to support the military, to support adventures, to try to build nuclear capability. In fact, almost all of it goes towards subsidies. The people are subsidized, the students are all subsidized, every sector of society, the mosques, the religious schools, are subsidized with oil money. And there's only so much oil money. And even though our gas prices are higher this year, highest in history, and about to become the highest in inflation-adjusted history, there is actually a reduction in money going to these regimes. The reason is the crude price of oil topped out about $78 a barrel, and right now between $61 and $64 a barrel, depending on the day. That is a 20% decrease from the top. The only reason it's so high now is that in Nigeria, there are captures for ransom by a little local guerrilla group of oil workers, which is driving down supply and driving up prices. So we have this over here. So what is Ahmedinejad doing? Well, he's risking his popularity, and to be very honest, the last 6 months or so, because he is a blowhard, kind of an idiot, he thinks that he is ushering in the period of the 12th Imam, who is the Mahdi, who is a Messiah, and that he is either a prophet or he's the Messiah himself. He hasn't quite decided yet, but he's an incredible egomaniac, even though he's kind of a short guy. But what he is about to do is to actually increase the price of gas to the people in Iran, and even worse, to limit the amount of gas that an Iranian can buy. This is something that's never been done before. There is an incredible subsidy to the point where gas is in the cents. You know, where here it's $3 a gallon. There it is literally in the cents per gallon. And of course, all over the world, they're on the metric system, so they go by liter. Article I read, and I didn't see this in our press, but maybe it's out there, uh, is that they're planning to raise the price of petrol, as the British say, from 1 pence to 5 pence. Well, what is that in dollars? That's a 2 cent to 10 cent increase per liter. Now, there's 3.8 liters per gallon, so the upper end, which is the 5 pence, results in a 38 cent per gallon increase. Well, gee, I think in the last month we've had more than a 38 cent a gallon increase. But for Iran, that's really something else. They are used to inflation-adjusted subsidies. Now, very, very interesting. Even though Iran is this big, giant oil exporter, the fourth largest oil exporter in the world, they actually import $4 billion, 2 billion pounds, British pounds, which is now $4 billion of oil into Iran every single year for refined products. They don't have the refineries over here in the Gulf, and are run by Exxon and all these big international oil companies. So they actually have to import gasoline into Iran, and then they sell this gasoline at a tremendous loss in order to keep the people happy. What they didn't count on is that there's a middle class that's actually buying cars in Iran. And now they're trying to limit the amount of gas that an Iranian can buy per car to 3 liters a day. 3 liters is less than a gallon. Now, if you can only buy 3 liters of gas a day, by the time you go to the gas station, you probably used up your 3 liters. So not only is everybody going to have to go to the gas station every single day, I don't know whether they do or not, they can't fill up their cars. And this is really upsetting the people, especially in the big urban area. I think that it's around 10 million in the metro around Tehran. And basically, those are the people, the Bazaris, the lower middle class, the people who owned stalls in the open markets were the ones that overthrew the Shah in 1979. So they are buying cars now, and it's probably not a good idea to irritate that entire population. And that is exactly what they're doing. Drivers would have to pay 20 pence a liter for petrol above the quota. So you could get it at the subsidized price, the first 3 liters. 3 liters, that's nothing. My car takes about 12 gallons. So if you figure that in liters, that's about 45 liters. And that's just, a little Japanese car. So you figure that if you want to fill up your car, that's 45 liters, and then they have to pay a premium of about 40 to 50 cents a liter, which is $1.40 a gallon. So they're going to have to pay $1.40 a gallon extra above that first 3 liters. This is a gigantic increase in price if somebody does want to fill up their gas tank. If not, they have to go there, wait in line, and get 3 liters. Because the prices are going up right now, there are, in a place that produces millions of barrels of oil a day, there's lines at the gas stations in Iran right now. Actually, they don't really even, or at least I don't see any polls over here for them. But these people are getting irritated. They're getting irritated with their government, and they think it's incompetent. Oh boy, that sounds like another country that has elections. And however, we don't know whether the Guardian Council is even going to allow somebody else to run against Ahmedinedjad next election. But Ahmedinejad and his government, the actual physical government, as opposed to the Guardian Council, is getting more and more unpopular, at least within the middle and upper classes. And one of the reasons, and even the lower classes, because they take jitneys and so on and so forth. So this is a step forward, in my opinion, that a vicious guy that hates America is getting more and more unpopular. And it's a question mark, because their government deficit's getting so bad. It's a question mark as to whether he really even now has the support of the mullahs themselves. Uh, about 3, 4 months ago, he wanted to go to the UN and fight the UN sanctions, which are pretty light sanctions, but they limit the amount of arms that Iran can, well, they say that Iran can export no arms, and they limit the amount of arms that they can import, which hurts their military a little bit. But the fact of the matter is, the mullahs told him that he could not go to America and speak at the UN, even though that was a function that affected Iran itself. So, he may, I'm not saying he's on his last legs, but I'm saying that there is increasing unrest in Iran, not driven by us, not driven by covert activity, although there is covert activity. We have a big, giant Navy presence right over here and here right now, and not driven by Arab guerrillas who are over here, have a little bit of terrorism, and Luki guerrillas who are over here and have a little bit of terrorism, but driven by the policies of his government. Even with $50 to $70 billion of pure profit cash going into his government every single year, he doesn't have enough left over to keep his people happy. And now another petro enemy. And I'm going to turn the world a little bit. Potential enemy. Okay, right over here is Venezuela. Who's the president of Venezuela? Anybody who watches my show knows that's Hugo Chavez. Hugo Chavez loves Fidel Castro. He's been president for about under 10 years. He got elected the third time. He is an elected leader, but he has been pushing very, very slowly and very, very patiently his country toward Castro-type communism, what they call socialism. He calls 21st century socialism. First he claimed he wasn't a socialist, he was a populist. Now he's, after he got elected the third time, about 2/3 of the vote. He got passed, before that he got passed and won a recall that tried to recall him. And he has been very, very slowly changing the Constitution bit by bit to favor him. And now he has changed the Constitution, done referenda, to the point where he can rule by decree. And he basically uses Venezuela as about the either fifth or sixth largest exporter of oil in the world. The only problem is that we are the people who import the oil from Venezuela. 1.4 million barrels every single day. That is $80 million a day that we provide to our enemy. He declares that America are imperialists. He's withdrawing from the World Bank, from the IMF. He has subsidized two guys to run for president, one here in Ecuador and one here in Bolivia, who are slowly changing their constitutions. Ecuador, a guy named, I don't have the name right at my fingertips, Morales is the guy in Bolivia, but in Ecuador, the president there actually had the military block all the opposition congressmen from going into the congressional building, replaced Congress with a constituent assembly, and is now going to have a referendum to vote for a brand new constitution that jumps about 8 years of what happened over here in Venezuela and gives him the power to rule by decree. Rule by decree is what? That's right, dictatorship. Now, the reason I'm bringing up Venezuela today and is because Chavez is feeling his oats. He has just recently, he had nationalized, taken over the oil company in 2002, made it a government oil company, and that oil company owns part of Citgo Gas. You may have seen Citgo Gas at your 7-Eleven, and I swear, and in my opinion, every American should boycott Citgo, never buy anything from it. Every penny of Citgo gas is being used against America by a guy who is doing a slow-moving dictatorship, totalitarian takeover of his country. And how does he do it? He is using oil revenue. He took over the oil company, and he is now taking over the phone company, the electricity company, and there's a bunch of oil fields over here, which is tar, basically, for all intents and purposes. Very, very difficult to process. And he's now taking over these oil fields and kicking out the American companies that have been working for him. People who do oil projections are saying that his exports are actually going to go down in the next 10 years because simply nobody wants to do business outside of Venezuela with Hugo Chavez and his government because he will take over their companies. Similarly, now the big news from Venezuela, and I think it has hit our press a little bit, is that the largest private TV network, it's called RCTV, which oddly enough is Radio Caracas Television. So obviously there's a Radio Caracas was the radio in the capital of Venezuela, which is Caracas. And that company started a TV station, and that TV station for the last 40 years become a cultural icon to the Venezuelans. There's a comedy show called Radio Rocha, which is, sketch comedy. It's the Saturday Night Live of Venezuela. It's been there for 40 years. The whole country tunes in, and Chavez, this is obviously privately owned, very, very anti-Chavista, and Chavez has just decided to withdraw their license right after he got elected the third time, and to take it over and replace it with what he claims is going to be kind of an NPR or a PBS type thing, but which in fact will become the fourth media that the government will own and control, and that will come up with 100% propaganda. People don't really watch or listen to a lot of the government stations. They have, their viewership is not as high as RCTV because it's boring. Let's face it, propaganda TV is boring. If you had to watch Fed Pride 24 hours a day, it would be deadly boring. A lot of people come to me and say it's already boring. But I am only on for 25 minutes, and there's 50 or 100 other stations to watch. Chavez already has 2 of the 4 TV stations. He has took over the largest magazine. Almost all the radio stations are controlled by the government now. RCTV is going to be really the big hitter because there will be one other TV station that's still in private hands. He's probably going to take it over very soon, but the one with the really big viewership is RCTV. So what's come out here is that 70%, they did a poll, 69.4%, almost 70% of Venezuelans are against his takeover of the TV station. They're afraid that their favorite shows will be gone, that these shows are reflective of Venezuelan culture. Venezuela, by the way, very, very pure Spanish. Colombia and Venezuela, at least in the more educated areas, and they produce a lot of the TV novellas that are actually shown on Mexican TV right here in America. All that will be gone and be replaced with propaganda TV. And there's an incredible amount of opposition to it. The only thing that Chavez has done, he has a 64% approval rating, that's been as unpopular, was to say that he wanted to put Venezuela on the Fidelista model. That was over 75% unpopular. My name is Reed Silverne. The name of the show is Fed Pride. Reason it's called Fed Pride because I'm a federal worker and proud of it. This show will probably be on Tuesday, and thank you very much for watching.